to start the recording. So we are recording, and I'll be turning it over quickly to April and Susan, but I will ask that everybody mute who's on. And then also, if you want to, go ahead and share your cameras. It's nice to see faces on these things. So feel free to go ahead and show us your lovely face. And then I do just also want to tell everybody, if you are teaching in the fall 2 term at one of our adult campuses, the IDEA course surveys will be opened up coming up here in a week or two. I'll send out an email, but I do just want to remind you guys that those are coming up. So make sure you get ready to start posting course announcements and get your students ready. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to April and Susan. So take it away, girls.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm going to share my screen. This is going to be an interactive session, so just so you're aware. Hopefully you're all seeing my PowerPoint screen.
Yep, we see it.
All right. And I'm not sure, is Dr. Koch here yet? Maybe not. Oh. Okay, sorry, there was a... I am April Rhoades, and I'm an instructional designer here. I've been at Ottawa since 2015, and I office at the Overland Park campus. I've met several of you, and my colleague is with me. Susan, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. So unfortunately, I haven't met enough of you yet, but hopefully, if I played my cards right, that'll change. So I'm Susan Rhoades, and I office at the Phoenix, Arizona campus, and I'm also an instructional designer. And almost a month ago, I celebrated my 1-year anniversary with Ottawa. So. Oh, and it's still me. Oh, go ahead. So somebody, Matt, did you want to?
Oh, yeah. My name is Matt Philo. I've been with Ottawa University for 3 years. I currently office in Pittsburgh, and I work with Susan and April on Kareem's team.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So first we're going to go ahead and start with our outcomes today, because of course it's training. So as you saw when Andrea was nice enough to send out the description for us, we're focusing on SafeAssign today. So we're going to show you 2 different ways to access SafeAssign in Blackboard. And then we're going to show you how to look at the SafeAssign report, all in efforts to identify possible cases of academic integrity violations.
All right. You can find the academic integrity policies in Blackboard courses in 2 different places. The first and easiest is probably in the syllabus. The third piece of the syllabus, the university and course policy section, contains the academic integrity piece of the policy. And then there is a policies menu in the course that also reiterates that same thing and has some information about SafeAssign in it for instructors and students. And it looks like Dr. Koch has joined us, so I will turn this slide over to him.
Whoa.
Well, so do you have any thoughts to add in terms of the policy, the academic integrity policies and SafeAssign?
I'm sorry, April. I was just getting on. I apologize. No, I don't have any general comments. I without knowing everything you're going to talk about and share tonight, the policy is based on instructor discretion, and you're going to hear tonight about SafeAssign and what SafeAssign provides for us and what SafeAssign does not. And I ask you to navigate academic integrity in terms of your discretion what you feel is over the line. You cannot, and the ladies will talk about this tonight because they're more of an expert than I am, but you can't just go by the percentage and like that. You have into that. Our course policies are that when you find questionable integrity, whereas academic misconduct, we do have a form on the portal. You can reach out to Andrea or myself, and we can send that to you, and you can document that. I ask you to document that because you don't know what has happened prior to your class or what is going to happen in the future after your class. So our academic policy is that you fill out an academic misconduct form, regardless of what direction you take, whether it is you allow them to resubmit or all the way to giving them a failing grade in your class. That comes to me, and then I have a report that I need your evidence of filing that academic misconduct form. And what I do is I look at your evidence. I look and see if your approach and discretion has been appropriate. And in which case, then I fill out my report. There might be some situations. The reason I'm involved in this process is because, as I said, you don't know what's happened before you. And so on my form, when I fill out my form, I can confirm the action you take, but I can also, as the academic dean with historical knowledge, enforce a more stringent disciplinary action. So, for example, you might say that you will allow the student to resubmit, and I might know that they have plagiarized before in a previous class. And so I might send that information to you and you, now that you have more information, to possibly increase your discipline. I don't grade students. You do. That is why I'm such a huge fan and proponent of your discretion. However, there might be some situations where I provide evidence of this misconduct and just ask you to consider that in terms of increasing your disciplinary action based on what you've heard from the academic dean. So there have been some situations where I have suggested, not required, but suggested that it has been rampant enough that they should receive an F in the class. But that is always back to you in terms of what you think is appropriate based on not just your class, but what information I would provide for you. All of that goes to the registrar. The registrar is the keeper of historical data on academic misconduct, whether it's plagiarism or anything else. And so, and some of you, I can see a line on the call, and you've had things that weren't necessarily plagiarism, but they were misconduct in a class. And so the keeper of that is the registrar. She notes the student's file, and I refer to that before I render a decision. So that is my policy, or the policies that we have in place right now, and that's how I kind of navigate that. I do not do it alone. I always do it in partnership with you, because you are the carriers of our content. You're the ones who have the relationship with the students, and you're the ones that I rely on to defend our academic integrity. So back to you, April.
Thank you. Did I go too far? Okay. Susan?
Oh, okay. So first of all, thank you, Dr. Koch. We did ask you to join us because, as we said, and as you said, April and I are here to go over the tool and to help our distinguished faculty understand how to use the tool and how it is another tool in their arsenal. However, we're not policy makers, and we wanted to make sure that you were in here so that if in the use of the tool, a faculty does identify a piece of academic integrity violation, that you were here to help them with that next step. So thank you very much for being here and explaining that process and procedure. All right, so SafeAssign, it's a tool. Bottom line, you know, you have a lot of tools in your arsenal. And SafeAssign is another one of them. It comes as part of the Blackboard package, so it's already in there for you. It's nothing that you have to download on your computer. It's nothing new that you have to go look for on another website. And within the SafeAssign tool, anytime an assignment is processed through the SafeAssign tool, it's going to look through the global reference database. That means anything that's been submitted into SafeAssign through any Blackboard client. So that's not just Ottawa assignments, that's assignments from any school that uses SafeAssign. So for example, some of the content that you look at today is going to be from Northern Arizona University. So anything from the global reference database. Institutional document archives, so that would be Ottawa content for us. Anything from the internet, so students grab something from a website, from a blog, from anything where they can copy content and put it in there, cited or otherwise, SafeAssign should catch it. And ProQuest and the ProQuest ABI and the Inform Journal database as one of the primary sources that SafeAssign should be able to catch. April, did you want to change? Thank you. All right, so let's talk about file types. So when students submit files these days, it's not just text, right? But in order for SafeAssign to determine if there's a possibility of an academic integrity infraction, they have to submit one of these file types. So it has to be a docx, a doc, an ODT, a text, or an RTF file, which are text files, either Microsoft Word, a text file, those kind of things, presentation or a printed PDF file, or a web page file, so an HTML or an HTM file.
All right, and Turnitin, another tool that looks at academic integrity that Ottawa University does not have, did this study that I thought was really helpful, we thought was really helpful in breaking down types of plagiarism that you might see in students' assignments. So they actually did a survey with about 900 instructors and just asking what sorts of plagiarism they were seeing, and they compiled this, they call it a plagiarism spectrum of 10 types of things that students do that is technically plagiarism. It may be intentionally plagiarism, or it might be, you know, accidental. They just weren't paraphrasing things correctly. And they looked at how frequent those happened and the severity of them. So the first one, most severe, is submitting someone else's work word for word and claiming it as your own. And that happens, as you can see, 9.5 out of 10 times here. And another one, copying a significant chunk of a work and maybe making some minor modifications, or sorry, not making modifications. Next one is replacing words, so changing some keywords, trying to make it sound like your own, but the essential content is from the source and they're not citing it. Remixing is they take paraphrased material from multiple sources and don't cite where it came from. And so you can see there's a wide variety of things students might do. Some of that might just be they don't know how to paraphrase correctly and they weren't intending to plagiarize. And in that case, that's a teachable moment. And some of it is they're blatantly stealing content from someone else and claiming it as their own. And we're going to look more closely at some of these types of plagiarism. You're going to have a chance to interact with some mock student work that contains these types of plagiarism later in this training. So we've got a question. Sam, you can put your question in the chat, or we will have questions at the end. Now, the key thing is with SafeAssign is that you need to double check the report. With SafeAssign, if you've seen it before, it will bring a score. It will say, you know, this is 50% plagiarized. But you really need to look at the report and look at what it's highlighting as plagiarism and making sure that it actually is plagiarism, because there are several things that SafeAssign can't differentiate. It's just looking at words, phrases, those sorts of things. So it might flag common headings. If you have an assignment that says you need to have, you know, an introduction section, you need to have this heading, then it might flag those. References, citations, journal titles, dates, those often get flagged. Assignments for cumulative assignments. Maybe your students are working on a research paper for their final project and they're turning in pieces of that throughout the term, and it might flag things they've turned in before. And group assignments where every group member needs to turn in their own copy of that assignment, it will flag that as well. So really look at the report. If you have a score that you're concerned about, open it up, look at it, see what it's saying is plagiarism before you accuse a student of academic integrity violation.
Okay, so April was just talking about the score or the percentage. So here we're going to talk about where to find that score and when you might want to get concerned. So hopefully you're all familiar with this screen. This is, of course, in your grading portal where you would have your final percentage or your final raw score rather after you've completed your rubric. So below that and above where you can access the rubric and the student submission is where SafeAssign comes in. Thank you, April. I'm like moving my mouse and you guys can't even see it. And so in SafeAssign, before you even open the report, it's going to give you a percentage of an overall match. Now, I've got my little bullseye here, and if it's below 15%, then that means there's the least chance of an academic integrity in violation. If it's 15 to 40%, there's a medium chance. And if it's above 40%, there's a high chance. Now, does that mean that you only want to look at originality reports for the students above 40%? No. Again, it's only one tool in your arsenal. You probably want to look at reports for most students. You want to make sure that until you get to know a student's writing, get to know their voice, you guys know the tools in your arsenal. You probably want to look at SafeAssign reports often. But if you're going to use the percentages as a guide, these are how those percentages work. All right, direct submit. So if you've got an assignment where students are not submitting directly to the grade center, there's other ways that students can submit assignments. It's not going to automatically go through SafeAssign. So there's a direct submit tool that helps us out with that. So if you could, either in the chat box or by coming on mic, where are some places where students would submit something that isn't directly through the grade center? A discussion board. Great. Thanks, Chris. What's another one? We told you this was going to be interactive. So, okay, if you want them to submit something via email, okay. Any other place that, does anybody have something in their current course or their most recent course that students submitted that didn't go through the Grade Center, that they didn't have to upload or submit that way?
Or that SafeAssign can't read.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Or file type that SafeAssign couldn't read. Wow. You guys are making it too easy on them. A presentation that might not be in a PDF format, a Pages file, which we actually have a solution for that. We have a converter for that, but thanks, Matt. We are required to have everything go through the grades. Actually, that's, as far as I know, and maybe Corinne or somebody can correct me on that, but as far as I know, it doesn't have to go through the Grade Center, because we've got assignments that don't always go through the Grade Center. So
It does. Definitely don't want emails.
well, no, it doesn't have to go through email, but it also doesn't have to go through the Grade Center, because we have assignments that are discussion board. We have assignments that get submitted in other ways. So it eventually, like, they eventually have a score in the grade book, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that students are submitting something like through an assignment page, right? So, because okay, so yeah, discussion board does go into the Grade Center. So, okay, so yeah, ultimately everything, yes, ultimately everything goes into the Grade Center. But if it goes, yeah, if it starts in the discussion board, that doesn't automatically get put through SafeAssign. If it starts anywhere else, it doesn't get put through SafeAssign. Go ahead and let's show the other one, April. So,
what about Grammarly and outside websites that some of our student populations might be using to help improve their writing skills?
mm-hmm.
Is that part of the SafeAssign bucket, or are there websites that we need to understand that are not included in SafeAssign, like a Grammarly and other tools like that?
I'm not sure. Well, with Grammarly, that just checks their grammar before they would submit it to an assignment. So that could go through SafeAssign. On the slide, and Susan can correct me if I'm off base here, but like if you had a student, the assignment was to create a website, maybe a professional portfolio or something like that on a website like Wix or WordPress or something like that. So the student has to go out on the internet, create an account, create a website, and then they're submitting a link to that website for their assignment submission. SafeAssign can't read that.
Exactly. So that's the kind of thing I'm recommending here for direct submit, is not a website that's a tool, not like Grammarly or something like that. That's another tool. I'm talking about when a student has a finished product that's done outside of the Blackboard system, that's where their finished product is, and the instructor has to grade it outside of there. So for example, there's the Padlets that are being used in some education courses. I know that some business courses are using LinkedIn because they want students to have their LinkedIn profiles, things like that. Those obviously are not going to be run through SafeAssign automatically. But if there's anything on there that is a concern, that text can be copied into Word and run through direct submit. So April's going to walk you through how to find direct submit in your Blackboard shell, so that if you ever have a concern where you want to run something through your direct submit, you have access to it.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back. See if I can pull up Chrome here. There we go. All right. So direct submit is a tool in your Blackboard course, and it can be found on the course management section of the menu under Course Tools, and then find SafeAssign. And in the SafeAssign tool, you've got 3 options really. You can look at all of the SafeAssign items in your course. So if you want to check and see what assignments in your class have SafeAssign enabled, then you can look at that menu. And you also have the direct submit tool. And basically how this works is that you can click submit a paper. You can copy paste text from a discussion board or a website or something and paste it in this text box here. Or if you're able to download a file, a Word document, a PowerPoint, any of these file types, then you can upload that file. So just as an example, I'm going to open up the discussions in another window and I'll just grab some text. Oh man, let's just say cancel for now. Oh, find where a student has responded. Okay, this one. So I'm just going to copy paste Rocky Acres answer here and hit submit. Oh, you have to put a title in. And it will take a little bit of time for the SafeAssign report to run, but leave it for 5 or 10 minutes, come back and refresh your screen and you'll have a SafeAssign report here. So we can check back in with this in just a minute or two. All right. Oh, I guess I should show you the third menu here, because I don't know how helpful this is, but if there's a website that you found a student has used and you think it should be in SafeAssign's databases, you can suggest a URL of something SafeAssign should look into. So I'm not sure what that does, but hopefully they're taking that feedback and improving their search capacity. Yeah, direct submit's really a great tool. Thanks for that. Okay, so we have a little bit of a challenge for you all tonight to kind of get your hands dirty, practice using SafeAssign, and to try to find some different types of flags that SafeAssign has. So we've created a challenge where we have several different tasks or challenges. We're going to give you 10 minutes and you need to try to complete as many challenges as you can. They vary from easy to more difficult, and the points correspond with that. So 10 points for a more easy challenge versus 100 points for a more challenging one. And so, like for the first challenge, there is to find a SafeAssign report. And I'm going to switch over to my screen here. We've created a Padlet board that has all of these challenges. Each column is a challenge. This first one is the directions. And so in just a minute, I'll give you the link to get to this board and the name of the course that you need to look at. And this board scrolls to the right with all of the challenges. You don't have to go in any particular order. You can do whichever challenges you would like. But basically, you'll read the directions. You'll find the item that it's asking for. So this first one asks you to take a screenshot of a SafeAssign report for one of the students in our SafeAssign training course. And I've linked directions on how to take a screenshot on any device if you need help with that. Your picture has to include the student's name, the percentage, and the summary of their sources from the report. and include your name, initials, or a nickname that you'd like to go by in your course. So you don't need an account to get into this Padlet. You will just click the plus sign. I've already done so in this example. It will create a new post for you. You'll put your nickname in here and then upload your screenshot that you'd like. And then you can see I've uploaded a screenshot. It's a little bit small on this screen, but it does have the student's name. It shows the percent on the SafeAssign report and the summary of sources over here on the right. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. You can private message Susan or I if you have questions you don't want to ask to the larger group, or you can put them out to everybody and we'll get back to you through the chat or verbally. You'll have 10 minutes, and the person with the most points, Susan and I will be trying to score people's things as you're working, as you post things, and the person with the most points gets bragging rights. Okay, so it's been confirmed you are all enrolled in our Faculty SafeAssign training course. So if you go to your My Course, if you log into Blackboard in your instructor account, and in your My Courses list, you should find a course titled Faculty SafeAssign Training. The course ID is, I'll put this in the chat. Maybe if I can find the chat. Is in the chat. Go ahead and find that course and use this shortened URL to get to the SafeAssign Challenge Padlet board. And I'll give everybody just a minute or two to get oriented here, and don't start yet until I say go. Thank you, Susan.
Sure.
Oh, looks like we've got a couple. Okay, a few of you may not have official instructor accounts through Ottawa University, but if you're in the phase 1 training, you should have a temporary account that you're using for that. And I believe that account has been enrolled in this course. All right. All right, I'm going to say we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start the timer on my phone. So on your mark, get set, go.
Andrea and Eric, we enrolled you as well if you want to participate.
If anybody's having any trouble finding the class or Padlet, let us know in the chat. Go ahead and I see a few of you have made some comments on the directions. If you click the plus sign and make your own post, you can actually put the screenshot that it's asking you for in there. And make sure that you put your name or some identification, initials, nickname, so we can keep track of different people here. 1 minute left. Susan, did your timer go off? Okay, because my phone did too.
Yes.
That went fast.
Yeah,
All
a little
right.
too fast.
A little too fast. Where are we at on time? Yeah, we should probably stop. So everybody stop where you're at. I'm not quite done tallying, but we have a lot of posts on here, so that's awesome. You guys were able to find pieces of plagiarism here. So I'm going to try to quickly go through and give points to people, but basically we're going to have some time for some questions, and while that is happening, we'd like you to tally up your points in Padlet. So basically you will just go through, look at your posts, and if we commented with 10 or 50 or 100 points on your post, then you will add that up, your total, and on this leaderboard comment or post, you will just add a comment, and like Aurelia has done here, and I gave an example, put your points first and then your name. I think that will just make it easier for us to read it quickly. So while you guys while I'm adding some points and while you're tallying, if you have any questions about SafeAssign, now is the time. You can use your mic or put them in the chat. I think we had some questions a while back in the chat. I would like your feedback on the Padlet software, what you thought about using it.
So Charles Neal had the question, what file types cannot be read? And you guys did that in the chat, right? You talked about that already? That's already been answered?
Well, that's kind of hard to say. We went over the ones that can be for sure.
I'll put that slide back up.
It's kind of, so some types that have been attempted but weren't able to be read, we know for sure, like Excel. Excel can't be read, but not every single file type has been tested. So that's why we didn't necessarily give the negative of these are the ones we know that can't. We went with the positive, these are the ones we know that can. Does that make sense? Charles, I think that was Charles's question. So Charles, does that make sense to you? Charles, are you still in the room?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So does that answer make sense?
Absolutely. Current course that I'm using utilizes Excel primarily and heavily. And that was when I asked that question, I had not seen the screen type, and I was thinking of Excel.
Yeah. If you want to, reach out to us privately over email or something, we can absolutely continue this conversation. There are certain parts in Excel that can be run through SafeAssign, but you can't just upload an Excel file and have it run through SafeAssign. So if there's something you're concerned about, reach out, let us know. But you can't just upload an entire document.
I appreciate that. And just seeing the direct submit option here, I think will be helpful when reviewing Excel, reviewing content in the spreadsheet.
Well, April, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can do Excel through direct submit either.
You can't, but he could copy paste parts. Like if students are
Right. Yep.
typing out a lot of information, you could copy paste that.
Exactly.
You might be able to export the Excel file as one of the accepted file types. I don't know what that would look like. That'd be something worth playing. I'm going to play with that after this.
Yeah, that's why I said, reach out to our team and we can work with you with different parts of the spreadsheet, but you couldn't just upload the workbook.
So we have a couple questions here. People want to know, Sam Potter's asking, can anyone clarify the algorithm more? I often get a score that doesn't seem to match the amount of text they have highlighted. And while I've got the floor, I'll just go ahead and ask Stephen's question too. He wants to have time to look at the SafeAssign report itself, and can students get access to the report? So Sam and Stephen.
Sam, I'm sorry, I cannot speak to your question. That is more technical than I know. I kind of feel the same way when we were playing with it. I was like, that can't be that much. I mean, the percentage was like 20%, and like, okay, you have a few dates highlighted here. So I'm not sure on that, but I know I can ask people at Blackboard that question. So I'm going to make a note to ask that on the Blackboard community site here.
And I will speak to Stephen's question. So as far as, will you have time to review it? Absolutely. We won't.
Is it part of your presentation? He's asking, are you going to help them understand how to read the report?
Oh, well, we did go over that a little, but not in depth. We can look at that a little bit more real quick, but the second part, can students gain access? Yes. On a couple of our resources, which we'll look at here before we close out tonight, there's a couple of links for students, and students have access to it. So when students upload, they can actually see their SafeAssign report. So yes, students have see the same exact thing that we do.
Is there a training video for the students, or is it left up to the professor to make that happen? Because I know, I mean, I know students, you say SafeAssign, they're like, SafeAssign, who's saving me? Whatever, I'm just kind of curious.
There's written directions for students. I don't know if there's an updated video, but I will definitely check.
Thank you so much.
And I've pulled up a report here. So basically it's taking the student's assignment and just put it in a unformatted text document, and the flags are highlighted inside that text document of what SafeAssign has said might be, that they found that it came from somewhere else. Over here on the right, you can see the SafeAssign score, and then sources. You can expand these menus. So this is looking at the Institutional Ottawa University student work database. And if it's a student that you've had in your class or in a prior term, then you're able to open up that source and look at it. So this particular hazelnut has some things that are similar to another student's paper. And up here at the top, you can see it says the name of the assignment. And I think, at least in the class I'm teaching, I think it says the class too. So you can then look, it doesn't highlight the part that's the same in the other student's paper, but you can look at the paper and find out what's the same. And that's the same with global databases is other students at other institutions. You're not able to open those because those are not students, your students. And then if there's any internet sources, you can open up the website. And a lot of times it'll open up the actual website that you can look at. Is that all right?
We're getting a lot of questions about students and not knowing how to use it. And yeah, so students actually can't use SafeAssign, but one of you want to address that?
Sure. In the assignment settings, and I think that the majority of assignments that have SafeAssign turned on have this setting also checked. There's a checkbox in the settings to allow the students to see the report. So in their grade view of their gradebook view, they can open that SafeAssign report and see it looks the same as the instructor view, other than they can't open up other students' paper. Right. They can just see that they have similar work to other students. Does that address the question?
Yes, in part. Chris Magnuson is saying, I think they cover SafeAssign in orientation, and I'm actually not. So we do have a SafeAssign assignment in the sample Blackboard course that all students are enrolled in, but we don't force them to go through that sample Blackboard course. But I don't know if, does anybody here know if it's covered in this Sem for Sig course, Seminar for Significance course?
I don't think so.
Maybe that's something we should consider adding. Because the students can't use it to figure out if they've plagiarized. They can only see it after the fact, but we could at least explain to them what that is. But perhaps students are confused because instructors are thinking that students can use it themselves when they really can't. Andrea, is that covered in phase 1, do you know? Are instructors, is that explained to instructors that it's their tool and not a student tool?
No, it's not. And I don't believe it's covered in Sem for Significance.
Okay, so let's take that as a takeaway and make sure we are on message across the board as far as who can do what with all of this.
Karen, did you want me to jump in on?
Yeah, I didn't know how to answer Align's question about.
Hi, Align. How are you? Oh, I made you unmute.
Oh, there. I'm good. Thanks, Eric.
Good. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So it's a very good question, and I would like to say to the entire group, self-plagiarism is still plagiarism. And so the expectations are, regardless of the reason why you did not finish a course or you have to take it again or whatever, regardless of the reason, every time you submit an assignment, it needs to be original work. Unless you are citing yourself in some published forum. So, and actually, if you look at the 7th edition of the APA requirements, the book that just came out, it's around page 254. It starts talking about plagiarism. 256, I believe, starts talking about self-plagiarism. So there actually is some documentation in there that might help you respond to students in those cases. But with self-plagiarism, I would say that I am always a little bit more lenient in terms of contacting the student and saying self-plagiarism is still plagiarism, and giving them an opportunity to provide unique work. However, it is considered academic misconduct. So if you're asking the academic dean of OU Midwest, is plagiarizing yourself misconduct? Yes, it is. But I leave that up to instructor discretion.
I would also piggyback if you would allow. So it's covered also in the course policies document. It talks there about self-plagiarism and about turning in work from a prior course as not being allowed. And in terms of your approach, I think is really helpful because you teach those early level courses, if I recall. You teach a lot of the LAS courses, and so that's a learning time for our students. So they may not have been paying attention to all the little details about what's allowed and what's not allowed. So I think the idea of reaching out to them and saying, if you've taken this course previously, please let me know, is a great way to approach that, to sort of help them not get in trouble, kind of get out in front of that. So I think it's an excellent approach.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I feel like I've had so many instances of it. And by the time I catch it, and then if I give them an opportunity to rewrite and resubmit, then they're falling behind with whatever the next assignment, so I'm just going to make it my policy, and in global issues as well, because global issues, they're asked to touch on each of those breadth areas. So they're digging up, some of those very early breadth area essays.
Right.
Cutting, copying pieces of them, which in some ways could be legitimate if they're talking about their own experience. But yeah, I'm just going to start asking students, let me know right in the beginning, let's have a phone conference and, try to nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
That's a double whammy in global issues because they, like you mentioned, they have a large body of work that they've completed. And the second part is they're at the end and they just want to finish. And so that's kind of a double whammy in that global issues class.
And Garth has a great question too about if a student fails a course and immediately takes it again and submits the same discussion responses, that is not allowed, question mark?
That is not allowed. It's still considered plagiarism.
And to follow, there's a connection there between that and Stephen's question about can SafeAssign be turned on in discussions? And the answer is no, but if you suspect any kind of plagiarism, you can do the way that April and Susan have suggested, where you can copy paste the discussion into a Word doc and submit it directly. But there are also all kinds of other telltale signs like abrupt changes in font and abrupt changes in style, in writing, in the level of the writing or the level of the vocabulary that's included. So you may be able to detect it yourself with Google once you sort of pay attention to those other smaller hints. Chris says bold or italic, right? If that suddenly appears in the middle of the text, yes. And Stephen asked about getting a copy of the APA manual. Eric, do you want to address that? I'm happy to, but I don't want me to put you on the spot.
No, I did get a couple copies from the APA website. I think the cheapest version is around $38, $39.
Once upon a time, it was available through the OU library. I don't know if it still is.
Yes, they're getting some copies, but they don't have them yet as of this afternoon. I talked to Gloria,
Okay,
but
yeah,
that doesn't help Stephen a whole lot being so far away. But the APA Live Guide, I don't know if one of our
I can pull it
team
up.
can put that in there. What we'd really like you to do, if we're switching a little bit over into APA now, is to go to the Ottawa Library website for your APA resources, rather than sending students to the OWL or the APA website or whatever. If you would just start with the Ottawa University resource, which will then link out to those other things, that will encourage our students to see the library as their source for academic resources. And I think April's going to put that link, yeah, there it is in the chat. And we're working on getting that website updated with the 7th edition information, as in addition to a compare and contrast of the main things that are the most relevant for student work. One of the beautiful things is that they've made a differentiation now between APA style for student work and APA style for professional publication, which is huge. I think that will really make it a lot easier for our students to understand. They don't need an abstract. They don't need the running head prefix is gone now. I don't know if you all have heard that. And the running head is optional. So we have to decide as an institution what we want there. But I think we're heading off into a little bit different topic. So we may have to have another session just on the changes in APA. But there you go.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all. I think that SafeAssign, like a lot of you have said, has been a pretty hot topic, and so you all came out and gave over an hour of your evening, and time is extremely precious. So thank you for coming out this evening. I hope that between April and myself and our team, we've done a pretty good job of answering some of your questions and maybe showing you something that you didn't know before. If you still have outstanding questions, know our team is always around, so please reach out and let us know. The resources will definitely be up for a little while, so please continue to play and take a look around. Our leaderboard did not get complete, so at this point we only have one winner. So for the sake of time, we'll give props to Aurelia. Nice job, Aurelia, for getting a total up there on the leaderboard. That might change, but at least for tonight, it's Aurelia. Good job, Aurelia.
Mm-hmm.
And April, do you want to say anything?
Can we offer to stay on for those who do have questions outstanding and who may still have time? I hate to cut people off, but I do see a couple questions in here that we didn't get a chance to address, and recognizing that our time is up, we could still work with those folks who'd like to stay. At least I'd offer to. I don't want to put you on the spot, April and Susan.
Well, thank you all for coming, and you can find us via email. I think we had a slide with that.
Yeah, we have resources and we have our contact information.
Oh, sorry.
This is Eric. I'm going to step off. Thank you, everyone, for your commitment to our students and to Ottawa University. I appreciate you joining us tonight, and this is an outstanding team that will be able to answer any of your questions and take the time to do so. So many familiar faces on the call. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Dr. Koch.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for those that are wanting to stay, I'll go ahead and leave the Zoom running, but I will stop the recording. But I do want to say that the presentation as well as the slides will be made available on the professional development site on the faculty portal area. So they will be available. But for those that want to stay and ask some questions, we can go ahead and turn that over. April or Susan, did you have anything else to add before I turn it over to anybody left asking questions?
No.
Okay. I will go ahead and stop the recording.